There's one thing that the men in my program who not only recover the fastest, but also maintain long-term sobriety. It's one thing that all these men have, and it's a reason to recover. And it's got to be bigger than your wife, your kids, your religious beliefs, right? You had all those things back when you were making all these decisions. So it was clearly not enough to make you stop. So you've got to tap into something that truly matters to you, something that fires you up. So the best way to kind of find this is, in the beginning, dive into recovery, dive in with both feet, buy all the books, buy all the workbooks, right? Fill them out, go to all the groups, go to all the intensives, right? Fill your head with all of the information that's out there. One day you're going to see something that really strikes a chord in you. It just really, really bothers you, right? I'm going to give you some examples here in a second, but you've got to tap into something that makes you want to recover. And I'm talking about something bigger than yourself, something that really, really matters, right? Matters to you, matters to something in the big picture. So I'm going to talk about, my why, the thing that really started to fire me up, but then I'll talk about a couple of the other ones that these guys have had in the groups, right? So for me, the big core one for me was changing my belief system. I didn't want a single belief in my head that I didn't put there. I did not want to believe one thing that I saw on television, that I learned from a friend, somebody that influenced me to believe something. And now I'm believing it and it's affecting my life. It's affecting my actions, my choices. I'm not okay with that. Right? If I act on something, I want it to be because I wanted to act on it, right? I don't want it to be because something was put into my head. And so when it comes to, compulsive sexual behavior, right, there's a ton of beliefs that were put into my head that I don't want there. I didn't put them there, right? Not at least consciously, right? So, the value of women's attention, right? I didn't put that in my brain. Somebody put that into my brain, right? Marketers, TV, right? Kids at school, right? These people convinced me that winning women's attention was valuable. So now I have to go back and decide, do I want that valuable? Anyways, there are, hundreds and hundreds of these beliefs that I developed that led me to act against my morals and my values, right? And I'm not okay with that. If I didn't put them in my brain by choice, then I don't want them in there, right? And so that's kind of the thing that fires me up. It's the thing that keeps me being introspective and complete and constantly, policing and analyzing my thoughts and my brain and my thinking patterns for accuracy, right? That fires me up. The second thing that fires me up is just the unsustainability of this practice in general. I mean, pornography use, it's not okay. It's not okay for these women to be doing. To me, exchanging money is not consent. That's not okay. To me, looking at their bodies for self-gain and turning them effectively into objects, that does not create a safe world for my daughter to grow up in, right? I don't want my daughter marrying a man, dating a man, going to school and having a teacher who has a long habit of objectifying women, looking at pornography and masturbating. I don't feel safe having my daughter be in that teacher's class. I don't feel safe having my daughter be around these young men or dating these young men, right? That's not a healthy, safe, respectful environment for her to grow up in. So if I don't want that for my daughter, I can't participate. Right? Because all these other women, they're other men's daughters, right? And so no one could do it with my daughter, but I can do it to theirs, right? That doesn't make sense, right? So those are two things that really fire me up, right? Creating a safer, healthier place for these young men and young women and, putting an end to and, not normalizing and not participating in the adult entertainment industry. But then also, I get really excited about policing my thoughts, the things that I believe. I don't want to believe anything that I didn't choose to put into my head. And I certainly don't want my actions to be affected by that. So that's my why. Those things really fire me up. That's why, I've stayed in recovery year over year over year, and it excites me. Right? You guys have heard, I don't like to call it recovery. I like to call it self-mastery, right? Recovery kind of implies that there's some sort of like finish line, right? Whereas self-mastery, it's a never-ending game that I'm playing. I'm constantly making sure that the things that I think are true and they're serving me and they're not harming myself or others, right? I've had other guys get really fired up about the objectification of women and how kind of like outdated and medieval that is. Here we are in 2025 and we're still using women to sell things, using their body as a tool in the media of something to covet and look at. And that driving, plastic surgery is up sky high numbers just in the last couple of years, right? And so there's a lot of guys that just don't like the effects that this is having on women, and a lot of it is, we're to blame for that. If we stopped, would these women stop, right? So a lot of guys are fired up about, kind of putting an end to the pressure that these women feel to constantly look younger, better, more fit, right? So those are some of the other ones that I have guys think about is, guys get really tap into the long-term effect of what this is going to do to our youth, right? Especially with the inventions that are coming out now and the advancements with AI, pornography is about to take a really stimulating turn. And so there's a lot of guys that are, wanting to get ahead of this because we know if we can keep these young men from becoming addicted, we can prevent so much hardship, not just pain that these men are dealing with, but the ramifications that the families are going to deal with, right? With the infidelity, erectile dysfunction, right? There's all these things that are going to affect our youth, which then in turn are going to affect their future families and their future kids, right? So the point is, you've got to tap into something that matters to you. You've got to, because it's interesting, right? The way that we think, for whatever reason, our own health isn't enough. Right? We kind of, we have this tendency of looking past that. Again, wife, kids, God, your religion, you think that these things would be enough. But again, these men had wives, they had families, they had their religious beliefs, and they were still acting out. And so it's interesting when you look at human psychology, for whatever reason, these really beautiful, important things don't matter to us. Right. So I would encourage all of you guys, especially the guys who are, in long-term recovery. I mean, if you've been in recovery for over a year, this is a long road. I would encourage every single man listening to this, tap into something that matters to you. Get fired up about this. To me, it's really hard to stay in great recovery if it's starting to get boring, if it's starting to get old, if you're dreading it. Right. So again, kind of coming back to what I said in the beginning, dive into recovery with both feet, educate yourself about all of these things, the effects that this is having on you, the effects this is having on your wife, your family, the effects this is having on the world, on society, right? Just educate yourself about all these things and try and find that thing that really speaks to you, that really fires you up, the thing that you really want to put an end to, because it's participating in those things, right? Something bigger than yourself, to me, that really drives long-term sobriety, right? I think it's the difference between the guy, a lot of the guys relapsing, they're just checking off the boxes, right? I think it's the guys who are really tapped into this passionately that can go the distance.